Welcome back to the Bragworthy Culture podcast. I am your host, Cassandra Rose, head of people here at Fringe, and I am delighted and excited to have Eveline Jaynes on our podcast today. Eveline, please, thank you so much for coming on to our podcast.
Well, I am very excited to be here. Lovely getting to know you and meet you. So yeah, looking forward to chatting with you.
Yes. So you work for an incredible company called Laserfiche. But before we get into your organization, learn more about the amazing work you're doing here, tell us a little bit more about yourself. Tell us your journey.
It's a good old question. Tell me about yourself. I started my professional career on Wall Street. I used to be on the operations side of a very large investment bank. And I did that for a couple of years and decided that I want to kind of transition into the financial tech industry, still on Wall Street. But I also realized that the human capital management, HR, resonated a little bit more with also my personal professional aspirations, if that makes sense. So that's when I made the switch to the fintech world. Spent some time there with this new organization, worked on some strategic projects, which gave me a lot of visibility and exposure to the C-suite, especially because the company at the time was undergoing an acquisition. And life took me to Southern California, a year over after my experience with a new company. And I joined at the time Laserfiche. And I've been with Laserfiche for over 7 years now, which is incredible. I can't believe that I've been here for that long, but it's been an amazing journey. And when I joined Laserfiche, I decided to bask a little bit more in the world of talent acquisition. In my former life as more of a strategic project manager for the HR organization, that's when I realized that connecting basically people with life-changing opportunities, such as their jobs, their careers, has a really noble aspect of the role and the profession itself. And I wanted to make sure that I tie it into my personal why, especially because I was an immigrant. And I always was trying to figure out, I was always focused on, okay, what's my next big thing? And how do I tie it into something meaningful that resonates with my personal story? So finding a job, finding means, to succeed in a culture and in a world that's completely foreign to you was always top of mind, was at the forefront of my everyday. And that is why I decided to switch from, trading stocks to the world of HR, human resource or human capital management, and now talent acquisition.
Yeah, that's a very interesting journey. I don't know many people who knew that they wanted to be HR professionals since they were 5 and pursued that as a career. So to hear that pivot is interesting. One of the things that you said that struck me is that you have been with Laserfiche for 7 years, which is an atypical tenure in the tech space. So talk a little about that. When you landed there, did you see yourself spending near a decade there, or how did that come to be?
Great question, especially because in the tech space, there's the tendency and trend of, switching jobs every 2 to 3 years, especially if you're not on a growth trajectory or you're not getting, a title change or a promotion. And I was part of that mindset, that thinking when I joined Laserfiche, especially because I moved from, East Coast to West Coast, didn't really know anybody in, Southern California, Los Angeles area. So I was thinking I'll just be here for a year or two and then see where the future takes me, what, networking opportunities might lead to new professions. But I'll say this, just kind of tying it into my personal why. Once I got to connect with the people, once I got to understand a little bit more the company's mission and vision, the growth opportunities, the impact that this role has and the value add that has on the organization, I realized that this is a place where I can bring in a lot of value, build a team, and contribute to the growth of the organization. And as such, pre-pandemic, we managed to basically double in size our headcount domestically and internationally. Now, granted, we're not exempt from the Great Resignation, but that's something that I take pride with, along, of course, with my team that supported, these efforts. So because I've had so much impact, across all levels, various business units, domestically and internationally, just continue to resonate with my my personal and professional why. So hopefully that answered your question.
It did. And having a lot of impact is something that can answer a why for a lot of people. I think those who identify as millennials or Gen Z are looking for that purpose in their work. They want to make sure that wherever they are, they're able to contribute to something greater than themselves. So just hearing that Laserfiche was able to provide that for you, that's why you're able to grow into your role as a director of talent acquisition after a 7-year period. That's amazing. And I'm hoping that there's more stories like yours than otherwise.
Absolutely.
So not only are you an immigrant, but you also work for a multinational organization. So tell us a little bit more about what Laserfiche does and how it does it in all these different geographies, because not only are you based in the US, you have your European operations, you're in Asia. How do you manage through all these different time zones?
Oh, what a great question. So in terms of what Laserfiche does, we are a privately held organization. We've been in business for over 3 decades, woman founded. So yes, Laserfiche is a leading SaaS provider, software as a service of intelligent content management and business process automation throughout the world. We have customers in more than 5 industries that use Laserfiche cloud-first development approach to boost productivity, scale their business, and deliver a digital-first customer experiences. To answer your second part of the question, how do we manage being a multinational organization? Well, we have been in business for over 3 decades, and we have offices anywhere from Canada to Ireland, Dublin, the UK, Hong Kong, Shanghai, and Guadalajara. And I think that, the most important aspect of managing global teams is understand, a day in their life, understand the responsibilities. Communication is key at all times, making sure that, everybody has a clear understanding of, their addressed and perhaps unaddressed tasks that then should be handed over to the supporting office. Like, let's say when the Laserfiche headquarters office shuts by, we can lean on our Shanghai, Hong Kong, or even closer, let's say the Canada and the Dublin, UK offices of the world. So I think it's just a matter of having a clear understanding of the responsibilities and lean into that collaborative mindset and ensuring that, there's coverage at all times, regardless, of the time zone. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, it actually does. So in some of the strategies that you may have to come up with, because not only are we hopefully in a post-pandemic world, COVID is still around, like you said, you have other things that you're contending with, like the Great Resignation, inflation, all of these other things. How do you use your values and the vision and mission of the organization to make decisions that impact literally employees across the world?
Great question. Well, putting people first is our number one value. So especially in this post-ish pandemic world, we've learned a lot. I think that we went through so many waves of changes. We went through the element of shock. Then, there was the Great Resignation. Then there was the Great Reflection. And now there's, as I call it, the Great Execution. So now that we've had all this kind of cycle of events that had massive impact on our organization and employees, engagement, commitment, productivity, we can lean into this newly acquired knowledge to basically make, I guess, people first centered decisions with regard to, the work environment, the company culture that we want them to succeed in. So a couple of things along those lines, I would say, is all sorts of programs. We've understood that professional development is top of mind, especially in an environment where, there's so much uncertainty, especially year one, I would say, of the pandemic. So we looked at some of the behaviors. There's all sorts of, international, global renowned studies to better understand why people are leaving. And the top three reasons, especially in the mid-career, mid-manager professionals, we've learned that there's three top reasons. One, that it's not connecting, like the employee is not connecting with the company's mission, or there's not much belief in the product or the vision that they develop. Number two is that there's not enough growth opportunities and or professional development opportunities. And lastly, not having strong work relationships, especially in this virtual environment where people don't really know how to engage, how to communicate, when to turn the camera on, even the attire. There was just so much unknownness and ambiguity. So what I appreciated about Laserfiche and what we've done was basically lean into our employees' input, conducted, especially year one, I would say, quarterly pulse engagement, employee engagement surveys, conducted all sorts of focus groups to better understand what keeps them engaged, motivated, and committed to Laserfiche. And as a result, we looked at that data, and that helped us inform or make more informed decisions with regards to various programs. So, for instance, we have an internal mobility program. But we started looking at it, at a global level, as you mentioned earlier, and people that wanted to, let's say, pursue new opportunities in one of our satellite locations were provided with, kind of the tools, the support from leadership, management teams to jump ship in a new satellite location. So it was great that we have an internal mobility program, but it took a whole new coach, if you'll say, which is basically to support, the global transition or global mobility. Another aspect that basically speaks to, and I hope that this is am I still on track with? Okay. Another aspect that we started embracing or focusing a little bit more, we realized that, in this virtual environment, it's important to, I think people reviewed their life priorities and wanted to be in an environment where they feel like, they have their support village. And as a result, move or relocate in closer to family. So as a result, we enhanced our out of Southern California, where we are headquartered, location or employment to 17 states throughout the US.
Oh, wow.
So we went from, 7, I believe we had at the time pre-pandemic, to 17 now, Hawaii including. And I can speak to, that amazing perk. I'm a perfect testament to it. This past year, actually decided to work remotely from the Aloha land, as I call it, Hawaii, for a couple of months. It still helped me, to be productive. I was still working full time, managed to work and figure out, speaking of the time zone difference, communication and handing over, tasks and assignments, or at least whatever project you're working on, figured out, the formula that worked for me and my team and, the client groups that I support. But at the same time, I wanted to be in an environment that resonates with, my well-being and enables me basically to be a little bit more productive, right? Because I was investing in activities and, in an environment that was conducive to, I guess, a more engaged and happy, right? I guess state of mind.
Yeah, that's amazing that you were able to put your people first by one, expanding your footprint. So that way, if people needed to work elsewhere, Hawaii being an ideal place, if you ever decide to work there again and need a roommate, feel free. So you can move there. And we actually at Fringe share that value of putting people first, of really thinking about the human being that's in the role and what can we provide as resources and tools. So as you've shared, there are a number of things that you've done both on an international level and then domestically to be able to support your employees. What are some benefits? I know that you offer comprehensive health plans, that you also offer community outreach, 401ks, employee clubs, ways for people to connect and feel fulfilled physically, mentally, financially. What has been top of mind or one of the most favorited benefits that you've offered here?
I would say professional development, not to repeat myself, but like I said, looking at the behaviors of and the why of the great departures, especially, year 1, 2-ish, even of mid-career and mid-manager professionals. We really wanted to focus on their why, which is not seeing, enough growth opportunities or professional development led to, parting ways, especially in a time where you're revisiting your life priorities and you want to be more vested in your everyday profession. So professional development became top of mind, and as such, I've seen an increase in attending all sorts of conferences or figuring out and mapping out with your manager, reporting manager, even with your team, what types of courses, certifications that you should partake or get under your belt, which in turn, the invitation was, okay, if you're learning and you're acquiring all this new intel, let's find a way to knowledge share with our team so that they can benefit. And it's kind of creating, this healthy feedback loop when it comes to, new trends and bringing innovation in their workspace. So professional development, I would say it's one. Obviously, enhancing our remote state menu where our employees can work from in the US, throughout the US. I would say also flexibility in a sense that this year we, so like I said earlier, we are headquartered in Long Beach, California, and we have all these 17 states, but what we, pre-April of 2022, we still were in a fully remote capacity. We operated in a fully remote capacity. Mid-April, we broke ground, or we broke foot into our new headquarters, and we're super excited. It's a very collaborative, but also autonomous, independent type of workspace that we've created to kind of transition us from, that fully remote workspace mindset into, an actual physical location. So we, on the flexibility note, we basically invited our employees, made it as an optional for them to come in working from the office 3 days a week, up to 3 days a week. Mondays and Fridays, the office, the physical location is actually closed.
Oh, wow.
But Tuesdays through Thursdays, they can come in. Yeah, they can come in and work the full 3 days, or some come just 1 day. For me and my team, we're more in the client-facing role, so we come in, especially if we have, an on-site interview. Obviously, we're keen on creating a positive candidate experience, but we kind of leave it at the discretion of the hiring manager. And again, I think that speaks to that flexible mindset. Another really great perk or benefit that leadership has been very receptive to. I think that, at the beginning of the pandemic, unfortunately, there were a lot of societal circumstances that begged for us, coupled with, living in or working fully remotely, begged for us to revisit, our philanthropic, let's say, engagement. And as a result, our leadership understood the value of our employees wanting to give back and invest, in organizations or nonprofit organizations that, speak to their or resonate to their interests. And as such, we provide 2 paid volunteer time off of a year. So whatever, near and dear cause of your heart is, you can take that time, and the company, is company supported, that you can go a little beyond your everyday. And I think it's also a testament of the fact that Laserfiche understand that there's life beyond Laserfiche, and it's important for our employees to feel like, there's more to, their everyday than their career.
Right. It's career and community, being able to invest in where you live or the causes that are most important to you. And the fact that you're allowing a paid time off twice a year. That's amazing. That's amazing. So want to pivot you a little bit away from this, because our audience typically are people who are in startups that are less than 10 years. And even though you're a SaaS company, you're a tech company, you have 3 decades of experience, but yet you're still undergoing some of what startups who are maybe looking to raise their Series A or somewhere in the alphabet are challenged with. What would you say has been a highlight of being able to work with an organization that has the history and maturity that Laserfiche has, and what has been something that you feel others who may be in business like Fringe for 4 or 5 years can take from that?
I think it kind of boils down to the number one value that we have, which is putting people first. Understand that, without our people, we wouldn't manage to sustain a business for 3 decades. Our founder was really big on, creating an environment, and obviously, at the forefront of her vision for the product that we develop is to create software that people really love to use. And she was really keen on, also making sure that our employees, speaking of the love component, really love coming into work. And to tie it into the putting people first value, it was important for our leaders to promote a culture that is not, especially in the tech space where you're just in this gotta, you put in long work hours, thinking about life priorities or life beyond, your job wasn't really something that a leader was, or at least that was the, I guess, understanding back then, was kind of factoring in or putting it as top of mind. What I appreciate, and I think that's also another thing that resonated with me personally when I had joined Laserfiche, coming from Wall Street, where you would just put in long, 14, 15-hour days. I appreciated that, that there's this focus on, just doing your deep thinking, deep knowledge work, stay focused, stay committed to, your set hours at work, but then, embrace the life beyond Laserfiche. Because if you have a life outside of Laserfiche, so that work-life balance, I think that, the employees are truly committed and engaged and wanting, are eager to coming back into work, and also creating that community, which is why we have all these clubs. We were big on, creating community that, our people can easily connect with through shared interest, be it, the sailing club, we're right here in Southern California, so we're right, by the water, or tennis, golf, Toastmasters. It's a new one that we've been embracing quite a bit. So helps with obviously enhancing your communication and public skills. We wanted to make sure that, that our employees, our talent truly feels like they pertain to a community while at Laserfiche and beyond. So I would say that, that was something that, that our former founder operated with and was really keen on. And for, the present times, I think that over the last few years, the rise of the new digital economy has truly shattered norms, shaken established business models, and really empowered consumers. And businesses or leaders, that want to thrive in this modern economy have to understand that we're all embarking on a, let's say, digital transformation journey, which calls for us to deliver necessary people, necessary processes, and cultural changes, especially, in this post-pandemic world. So this calls and requires basically for a new generation of talent with an entrepreneurial mindset, right? That can harness technology, drive innovation, and empower basically this change. And I think that for us leaders in the tech space, it's really important. I just actually sat in a recent presentation where it was tailored to the C-suite, to the leadership, with regards to how to engage your workforce, especially in this highly disruptive environment because of the global pandemic and constant, especially within the last few weeks, terminations and layoffs. Yeah. And it's interesting that the focus, what I'm noticing that the increasing trend is that it's on emotional intelligence, creating, I guess, inspired employees, and by focusing on empathy, coaching, flexibility, and well-being. So I think that that's better put than what I mentioned earlier, in the sense that we're focusing on all the traits and the intangible skills. And I feel like emotional intelligence and adaptation Q, so EQ, AQ are eating intelligence, IQ for breakfast, especially in these present times, with virtual times. There's an increased focus on, kind of creating a psychologically safe environment where, people feel included, people feel heard. They're not seen just as a transaction, which instills, that, I guess, comfort and confidence that, hey, I am valued, I am being seen, I'm recognized for my efforts. And implicitly, it just does something to our psyche. We want to, show up through a more vested, engaged, committed, and focused lens. So hopefully that answered the part one question with regards to, what our former founder was keen on and what helped us, get to and sustain a 3+ decade global business. But I would say, with regards to the new kind of trends in the tech space and, tech leaders, there's a very keen focus or spotlight on, creating those inspired leaders that are focusing on emotional intelligence, on that self-awareness, on being, more flexible and coaching and inspiring that trust that, employees are longing so much for.
No, I love what you said, that EQ eats IQ for breakfast. That is where we've gone. So my last question to you, Eveline, is what would you have told yourself 7 years ago, not knowing that you were going to be the director of talent acquisition, not knowing that you were going to be 7 years in this role? What's one piece of advice, knowing all that you know now, that you would have said to yourself as you were going through that interview process?
Great question. I keep saying this to my team as well. Stay curious and embrace change. And as a result, so the curiosity, it feeds, I guess, insight into your profession, into the industry that you're part of. You approach your everyday role, career through that inquisitive mindset. I think that instills a level of comfort and confidence, professional confidence, that you are either A, on the right path, and or B, which brings me to my second point, you get to pivot. You have to recognize, who would have thought that we're going to go through a global pandemic and we're all going to, engage and collaborate through a screen, through a lens, literally. But, as an immigrant too, not to make it super personal, I've learned that, adaptation is the key ingredient to, being successful, no matter what you're doing, no matter if it's in a personal or professional life. Change is part of our everyday life. There's a really cool book that I actually had my entire team, we all read it. It's called Who Moved My Cheese? And it speaks basically, yep. It speaks about, the concept of, the hemming and hawing and who's embracing the change and what does that really do to you and your success versus, those that are reluctant, resistant to change and constantly, are the naysayers. And I think that now more than ever, having coupling those two, staying curious, keeping up with the trends, understanding, kind of like or forecasting, right? Leading into that knowledge and forecasting, the potential changes or challenges that might come your way or your company's way, your organization's way, and coupling it with, that ability to pivot and change. I think that's something I wish I would have been even more aware of and invested more of a focused effort, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. That means you're evolving and learning, which we all should be striving towards. Well, thank you so much for your time and your insights. Like I said, I might get a t-shirt that says EQ eats IQ for breakfast. I think that's where leadership is heading. So thank you for your insights, and hopefully we'll have you on the podcast again.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate you taking the time. I hope that it was insightful. And yeah, thank you.